Hello Biblionauts, I am Grix among other things, and this is my Parade of Ignorance. Today I wanted to talk about the Carta Magna because I have been reading this for the last few days and I just finished it, and I haven't read the whole thing. I skipped one chapter on King John that I found incredibly boring, and this is definitely, it feels definitive. This has more than you would want. It has all the information that you need to know about the Carta Magna, and because of that, because it's trying to cover so much range, it also has certain parts that you might not be so interested on. I wanted to understand the document, so I read the document and I read the historical context from different angles. I also read some of the commentaries of the author David Carpenter on the book, and I found it incredibly fascinating. I think it's 800 years ago, in the 1215, when it was written. There was a second version made 10 years after because some clergy made some modifications, I believe. But this is the 1215 one, I think. The earlier one, basically. I don't know if it was 1205 and 1215 or 1215, and I should have checked this, but I find dates so they just leave my mind, and I don't, perhaps because I don't find them so relevant. I know they are, but when it comes to like distances of dates of like 800s of years, 10 years up or down, stops being, for me it's more important to know that a writer was Victorian than whether or not he was from the beginning or the end of the Victorian era. Similarly with the Carta Magna, I know it was 800 years ago, I know it was like 1215, 1210, but I'm probably gonna, from now on, for the rest of my life, because that's what I do, that's what my brain does, I'm gonna keep mixing up which was first and which was afterwards. Either way, the earlier one is the one that really made a difference. The other one had some modifications, but the earlier one was the one that was like the a point of inflection in history, the acknowledgement of the rule of law, which of course King John was forced into. There is no human that has ever been who would renounce power willfully, and he didn't. And also, it's not like the Carta Magna really changed a lot in terms of behavior. It only changed a lot in terms of the acknowledgement of certain rights that should belong to all, not really all. We are talking here about only free men and in only a very privileged class. Peasants are not are not mentioned here as free men, not to mention Jews and women. Jews are only referred to as creditors, and women are only referred to, by creditors I mean loan givers. Which I found quite interesting, because, you know, like reading Nietzsche, I thought that was a reductionist thing from Nietzsche, but seeing that the only way Jews are referred to here are precisely there's a law that says something like, if someone dies owing money to a Jew, his predecessors won't have, or his son won't have to inherit the debt until they are over age. So they still have to inherit the age, but they can't wait until they're 18. So it says a lot about whether or not Jews were a minority. They definitely had a certain financial power that, as David Carpenter comments at some point, benefited the crown in some way or other. Otherwise, they would not have this beneficial acknowledgement of their loans as something roughly claimed back, right, with interest. They could have annihilated or removed the interest from Jews' loans, but it was not under interest because through that debtor-creditor relationship, the crown and many other people was benefiting economically. So I found that very interesting. Also, of course, women are only referred here as widows and as property. That's why when they say free men, the reason why, David Carpenter also mentions at some point, the reason why most women never had to swear to the crown, like plead why they didn't have to swear to the crown, why they didn't have to promise loyalty or anything like that, is because their man would respond to the crown for them, just like as and like a farm animal or like your own any part of your property. You know, if your woman does something, then it's you that is responsible for that, and it's you who should take care of it. So it was definitely not a equitative texting anyway, but it was a step towards certain kind of generalized rights and certain kinds of freedoms that were not guaranteed before. They were also not guaranteed after this, but again, it showed some intentionality in that direction, and definitely there had to be, whether or not King Young was for it, which he was not, and whether or not the men who forced him to it were interested in guaranteeing their own freedoms rather than freedom in general. The document definitely had behind some good intentions, which is to say a lot. I feel like if I don't say why I read this, I'm gonna feel like I'm hiding something from you, and since I very often say that I feel no accountability toward you or anything like that, having to hide something from you would make me feel a bit stupid, because it will be in contradiction with how I try to approach this channel. I was reading this only for one reason. I had a trial that I had I was in a trial the day before yesterday, yeah, it was a very long day yesterday, and I thought it was a good excuse to read this for the trial, not to use it on the trial, just because, you know, I tend to, you know, if I go to a certain country, I read a book from that country. If I go to a certain place that it brings me a context, I'm sailing, I read a sailing book. I find that quite charming to do. And being on my way to a trial, I was like, yeah, let's read this, and I was ready to know on the airport and everything. And I don't think that I would have read or enjoyed this as much if it weren't because reading this and reading other stuff made it had like a direct application of some kind of understanding of the real world, which before it would never have had. The way the law works in Spain, although it's quite different, it's much more it's more directly related, like in Latin countries. Also, I think Portugal and Italy, and Greece is not a Latin country, but also I think it also applies for them, is much more historically rooted than the way it works in probably your country if you're from the US or the UK. Hello, Gala. It's one of my cats. This house is full of cats and full of dogs, so at any time, through any window or any hole, any animal can jump into the camera, so don't be scared. Yeah, it's much more historically rooted. It's not based on precedent like it is in the US, for example, where in order for the jury to arrive at a conclusion or something like that, if there is a precedent, if there is some other trial in which a decision has been made on a similar case, that in itself is enough for the next trial on that similar case to make a similar decision. This doesn't work this way. There is in some ways it's more fixed and therefore more guaranteed. You can trust that your trial will have a less scary plot twist, but also harder to get away with certain things. I do consider the Roman way of doing law more efficient, although I think that the Anglo-Saxon way is more fun. That's why, you know, Hollywood has always employed their own way, because it has a bit more creative input. If I were to be a lawyer, I would definitely choose to do it on an Anglo-Saxon country. And honestly, after this trial, which was very, very, very favorable to me, and it didn't have to, because I was committing a crime, a very bookish crime. I won't say anything else, but it was very, 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 very favorable. I found everything so interesting, like the whole thing, you know, from the way the room is structured, the clothes that the lawyers and the judge wears, the height at which each person is standing, is all part of a representation. Is the representation of the law. Is like a play being enacted, and the name of the play is justice, or law. And all of this, my lawyer was explaining to me, which was, I think in American you would call it pro bono. It was not someone I was paying. It was given to me by the state. And I couldn't have been more lucky, because not only did I meet an amazing lawyer that loved her job and that had been doing it for many, many years, and that was doing it vocationally completely, but also is just one of the best people I've ever met. Like, she became immediate best friend. The night before, we were on the phone and we were talking about preparing for the case and everything, and that was you know, a bit stressful. But after that, we spent hours talking about books, about history, about philosophy, about literally everything. And then the next day after the trial, we went for a few wines and ended up you know, maybe not very professional, but as far as I am concerned, I've made a friend. So that's great. I don't have many friends in this area of Spain, because as you might know by now, I'm extremely nomadic, and I haven't been for longer than 6 months anywhere almost. There is only like 3 places in the world where I have been for more than a year. And that means that I don't have a lot of people anywhere. I don't have many friends anywhere. I only I only know one person here and there, which means that I have a house in pretty much every country that I've been. But it also means that I don't have that kind of community that people who grew up in the same place forever, for their whole life, has. Which is interesting. It's a different way of moving about. It will definitely, that lack of not lack of roots, because I don't feel completely estranged, but I mean, I do often refer to my existential state as exile, but I don't mean it in a bad way. I'm not like Ovid, you know, always wanted to come back. I always want to come back somewhere or arrive at a new place, but not in the sense of like I need to get back home. I feel more like many places are partial homes, and I piece them out together by moving about. So yeah, I mean, this is the Carta Magna. I don't have much else to say. Of course, I'm not well versed in this, as I am almost in anything either. But I found this to be the right place to go for the Carta Magna. It's interesting that this is written by David Carpenter. The Carta Magna, although it happened in Runnymede, very, very close to where I live in the UK, so close that I often run by the place where it happened. It was not written in English, it was Latin, and it was not also negotiated in English. It was French, if I am correct. So it's a very international document from the beginning, and yeah, I guess you should read the Carta Magna. This could also be a book self-essential. So, you know what? I'm gonna title this video "Book Self-Essential" because after having read this and after knowing its relevance, and also know that I have skipped certain parts that didn't interest me at the moment, but that will interest me in the future, I'm gonna break my own rule. Normally, only the book essentials of books that I have been and I have had for more than a year, to make sure to confirm that I am coming back to those books. But I know that I will be coming back to this, not for the same enjoyment that I will be coming back to Dunes Herbert Dunes. Not Dunes Herbert, Herbert's Dune, and but more for its relevance, and just perhaps there is a certain kind of enjoyment to be derived from having read this in the moment I did. So this will forever remain, I think, a book self-essential, and I'm breaking that rule. You can know for a fact that any other book I read that I call book self-essential will be a book that I have had and read for more than a year, because I need, for me, the category book self-essential means that it has become essential in your library for a reason, which is that you keep picking it up. If it's essential just because you like how it looks in the world, then it's not essential. It's just beautiful. So yeah, this is a book self-essential. as you can imagine, as you can predict from this video, I do have a tendency to break laws. So I'm breaking my own law there when it comes to bookshelf essentials. And yeah, I mean, Carta Magna, David Carpenter, really good. I feel like I am forgetting something, that I had something to say, but I think I'm gonna leave it here because, yeah, time's up. I gotta go see a few places. I'll keep you updated about that. I'm moving to Spain soon, only for a few months, but in that time I am doing something else. I am acquiring a homestead of a kind, and yeah, I'll probably make a video about that if it happens to be, if it's fully realized into being. And until then, I'll see you on the other side. Take care. Bye.